Hey everybody, we're going to be looking at one of the tempo operation features in Logic today. This is something that I use when I'm importing drum stems or drum multi-track files from a different project, or mostly like when I record things in, say, Pro Tools in the studio and then find myself with a bunch of tracks I've recorded there that I want to bring in. So this is a drum kit. And what I want to do is pull this into Logic. Now, actually, before I pull it in, I do want to use the adapt tempo. I want Logic to actually analyze this for the tempo, right? So I'm going to pull these in. And this is the part that I was getting hung up on a little bit previously. I'm going to create new tracks, and I definitely want to select all selected files or stems from one project. That means that it's not going to move them around based on the analysis of the tempo of those different individual tracks. It's going to treat them like one track essentially. Now, what was happening for me previously is I would do this, and I know that this was the right thing to do, but Logic turns off the flex and follow functionality from these tracks once you have that smart tempo setting for these particular files. So you can see it analyzed for the tempo. I've got them all lined up perfectly still, and so I still can't just change the tempo yet. I have to turn on flex and follow. But I always want to come down into my mixer, select all those tracks to make one of those ad hoc groups, but then make an official group. And with this group, I'm going to click back on that number 1 to open up the group settings here. I'm going to turn on quantize locked so that anything that happens, they all get moved together. This essentially locks them into place so that with multiple microphones, such as the snare mic and the kick mic, that anytime we're changing tempo and stuff, that things stay together, or if I'm quantizing them. But I just like to lock them all into place. And you'll notice, let me come back in here for a second, I turned off all the other group settings. If I really want those to be engaged, I'll use a different group. Let's close our mixer, and now I've got the tempo here. Let's just listen for a second to make sure I've got it right. I mean, the click track is right on with that. So now I'm going to switch my tempo project tempo option from adapt back to keep, and then I'm going to just drag one of these node points all the way to the end, and there we go. Now I've got one steady tempo for the whole thing. It's adapted everything. We can verify that. And that is, oh, actually we haven't done that yet. Let's go back. We haven't done the thing I was just saying we needed to do, so let's do that really quickly. Let's select all of our tracks, and we'll do flex and follow. We can do on, align bars and beats. We might just want to set it to on. Let's let it do its analysis here for a second. But we have everything locked together. Okay, that's sounding pretty tight. Let's now do the same thing where I get one of the nodes and just stretch it out across the whole thing. And if I want, now I can raise up this tempo down or up. And so now I've got these drum tracks that were recorded in Pro Tools. I pulled them in. We made sure to always keep them together. We've analyzed them now. We have the tempo map created, and then we pulled it out. So that way we could, make this a really flat, even tempo. And now these tracks can be used with any of the Apple loops. You can record all your new things, and it's going to be following the tempo, but it's a little bit cleaned up feel over how it was before. And so, we have all this ability now to match and put things together. Maybe that's not the best example, but Apple loops now work in time with this, which is really cool. The last thing I'll say is when you're doing this, now that these are, locked together like that, let's turn on our groove track. And you'll see that if you make this the source of the groove track, all of them get starred, which is nice. But we could also, if we wanted to, let's just do a new drummer track for a moment. And let's see, let's line these up in here, and we'll just expand this out. And let's change this drummer to something else, songwriter maybe. And let's make this the source, and we'll have the rest of the drums follow that. We don't even have to have that turned on. And we can use that as the source. Or we can do, this drummer as the source, and anything else in the project, we can have it follow that. So it's just nice to be able to have this locked down in a way that is more useful. And we can go through and do any part of this up to any point. So we could have stopped before we cleared the tempo and just had the original tempo stay there. We could have done that and then just had all the Apple loops follow the kind of the tempo that's giving and taking a lot. Here, let's go back and I'll show you that one more time. Should be right about here. So Apple loops and things do work with this too. I mean, it's not like, we're forced into, doing anything else with that. I don't know how this will sound. I just picked a random loop. Might be a little bit better if we found like a nice MIDI loop instead of an audio loop to do some of those, but those are drums. Let's get an organ here. Find one that's a little longer too, because I think some of these ones that are just 8 bars make it harder in some ways to really fit into it. A little bit better. Let's try that. That's about as boring a loop as we could probably find. Okay, cool. You get the idea. This is now becomes a song that we can do this with, either with a tempo like this, where it's all mapped out exactly, or if we flatten it out and the drums then change. So in this way, the drums are playing their natural recording without having any changes to them. If we flatten that out, then the drums actually get, flexed. And so they move around to fit in with the new tempo that's there. And so I think that that's a really cool way of doing it. You can also, of course, at any point in here, change some of these. So for instance, we could add like some of these different shapes in there to make it change over time. So we can add excitement and do other things this way if we want. And the drums will continue to adapt to whatever we tell it to when we do that. Such a cool feature to be able to do this, to be able to have like this fluid relationship with time with both MIDI and audio recordings. And I think that this is just one of the strengths of Logic. Okay, that's all I really want to show. The main thing for me being that after you bring them in and you have that initial checkbox that you have to come through and tell it to flex and follow, turn it on, because it'll be off by default. And you want to have it on so you can actually come through and adjust the tempo the way that we were just doing it.